Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. So glad to have everybody here at SDCC at home. We are so privileged and honored to have the writers and some of the writers behind our brand new Stargate RPG SG-1 Phoenix D&D 5th edition. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce John and Steffi, John Kennedy and Steffi Devon. Do I pronounce that right?
Yep.
Love it. And both of these guys I've been able to talk to a couple of times about what they've been doing and their backgrounds, but we really want to share it with everybody here at home, especially this weekend as we're prepping to launch the game. So I'm going to go to John first, let you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, and then Steffi will bounce over to you.
Hi, I'm John Kennedy. I'm a freelance game designer and writer. I've been working in the tabletop gaming industry for about 16 years now, pretty much since like the very end of college. And I've been a huge fan of Stargate ever since I saw the movie when I was I don't remember how old I was, but I remember. Yeah, it was.
You must have been a baby. Come on, John. That's a long time ago.
Sure. Yes, I was a baby. Yeah. We'll go with that. I think I was in middle school for sure. But and then I discovered the show just on accident because I caught like it in syndication on I think it was UPN at the time, and then later Sci-Fi.
Sure. And
then I just followed it all through college. I remember the year that I graduated from college was the year that they wrapped the series.
Oh, geez. SG-1 or the whole thing?
SG-1.
Okay.
And I've been a huge sci-fi fan my whole life. So getting to work on a property such as Stargate was just a real honor for me.
It's a dream come true, right? For a lot of us, it really is. It's very lucky, especially to get the continuation of the franchise. It just is. As I was talking with some of the game testers and writers yesterday, and it's just the franchise gift that keeps on giving us as fans. It's really amazing. Steffi, why don't you give us a little background, introduce yourself, and how you came to be with us and on the team?
Yeah, so I'm Steffi Devon. I'm also an indie game designer and writer. I write for big IPs like Vampire the Masquerade and Stargate now. But I also publish my own indie games with my partner in writing, and we just released our anthology called 2 Women, 12 Games, where we both just wrote a game.
Oh, that's right. Congratulations. I saw that.
Thanks.
Very well done. That is
really
fantastic.
Successful. Yeah, basically it's a game a month. That was buckling down. But so I've been writing games for a long time, and then I saw that Within Gaming was doing a Stargate RPG, and I just wrote them out of the blue. I was like, hire me, I'm really good at my job. And they did. And like John, I saw the movie first when I was not quite a baby, but young.
Yeah.
And I just fell in love because I loved Egypt at the time. So I was so obsessed.
Oh, yeah.
And then obviously it took a while before the series to start. And then Amanda Carter. Boom.
Yeah.
Like I've followed Amanda Tapping ever since. She was such a big influence on me as a young girl, as a young woman trying to figure out how to navigate this world. Amanda is amazing. And Samantha is amazing. It's like when the perfect actress meets the perfect character.
Right?
So
yes.
Yeah. So I love all of them in the series. I love all of them, but Samantha is that's my go-to girl.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and she is inspiring, as we've seen, for so many women and so many women of your generation and the next generation to come into, whether it was writing or sci-fi or science or astrophysics. So it's been amazing to see the impact that she's had across the board on not just fans, but women and girls in general. It's been great.
Yeah, I know. She's so special. Yeah.
Well, I love that both of you were just such huge Stargate fans. That's one of the things that is an amazing part of this project and this team, is that everybody that's on it is a diehard fan, a passionate fan. And that speaks a lot to the fandom itself, that we have this engaged fandom that wants to be part of it. Doesn't matter what our careers are, where we are. If Stargate shows up on the radar, we want to be part of it. And I think that that's a huge part. So to that end, a little bit, I'd love for you guys to talk to me about which part of which series is your favorite, why it's your favorite. Obviously, Samantha Carter was a big deal, but if there was something in particular that you remember, favorite episodes, and what caught hold of you in particular in the themes in Stargate, because those come through in your writing. So I'd love for you guys to talk about that. So Steffi, go ahead.
So for me, and actually this held true when I rewatched. Obviously, I took this opportunity to rewatch the entire thing, and my mom would be like, "Steffi, shouldn't you be working?" This is work. This is research. This is official.
Yes.
But I remembered the show as being very inclusive and very diverse, and not afraid of tackling issues, just going all in. Like, we stand for what is right and what is just and what is moral and what is inclusive and what is diverse. And I remember that hit me back then. But of course, there's always this nagging sensation of, oh, I wonder if it held true. Like, if it's as
yeah.
So I rewatched and I was like, yeah. No, they were all in on the issues.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that when people are not afraid to take a stance and just go, this is what we stand for. You can like it or you can leave.
Lump it.
Yeah, exactly. So I love that. I love how inclusive they are with Samantha, and then Teal can just, and I love Jack's sense of leadership. He's very, he has a very soft approach to leadership. What we vision now as a man who's in charge is very laying down the law and boom. But Jack has a very soft approach. He listens to the experts and then he does what they tell him, which is a really clever approach to leadership. And I just love that that the writers just, they have this great actor who's very, very manly, and then just have him have this wonderful, almost soft take on leadership, which I found so refreshing back then, and I still do. Watching it, I'm like, he is such a good leader.
It held up quite well, to your point, and I think that was a great conflict for him, and it speaks to the writing, obviously, is that a lot of times that was a conflict for him. So does he listen to Daniel? Does he listen to Sam? He obviously had great respect for them, but there was, I think, very well written conflict in that, speaking to what you're talking about, that to be a good leader, you have to be able to lay down the law sometimes, but you also have to be able to listen to those that are around you on your team. And I think that's a great point. I love that. And I love that you said the same thing that we all feel. We've all been rewatching it, and it holds up remarkably well for a 90s. And again, it went into the aughts, but it was a 90s series to all intents and purposes. And so I think that's really good. And so, John, to that point, what is it about the themes and the topics of Stargate franchise in general that's kept you so engaged to the point that you want to write for it?
Well, so I was really into Egypt growing up, like Egyptian mythology and history. And the show was it hit everything that I liked as a teenager growing into an adult. And the thing that I like about the show is that, like, as we've already mentioned, how like Samantha Carter is like, she's skilled, she's brave, she knows what she's doing. She's not treated as like the brainy nerd of the team.
Right.
Throwing a couple jokes like, can you dumb that down for me? Because Jack had the everyman approach. But I just love the fact that she was shown that, like, she was a major and then, she was a colonel, and she earned those ranks. And she's highly skilled and she knew what she was doing. And when she talked, like Steffi mentioned, you should listen.
Right.
He's not there to like throw out like exposition like Daniel did at times.
Right.
He would be like, no, if we wanted to blow up the star, here's how I'd blow up a star. Which happened.
Right.
My favorite character was Daniel Jackson, and I was a history major in college.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And I love the fact that Daniel brought the human element to it. Daniel wasn't in the military. He wasn't a Jaffa soldier, and he wasn't in the United States Air Force. He was a civilian, essentially a civilian contractor who pretty much got like, so much basic training that he was as skilled as any other soldier, or airman, sorry.
Right.
But it was the fact that like he was not afraid to be like, hey, maybe we should do the right thing here.
Right.
Like, there was the episode where I'm notoriously awful, by the way, at remembering episode names.
No problems. So if David Reed was here, he'd have this covered for us, no problem. But that's okay.
In our Discord, I was always the one to go, oh yeah, it's that episode with this thing, and this thing. And he'd be like, do you have a window of opportunity? Yeah, that's it. But there's an episode where this alien ship is colonizing a world that the SP team just moved a bunch of refugees to. Right. And refugees can only live on this certain type of world. but this alien ship contains the last surviving, like, essentially embryos of an advanced species. And the orders from SG-1 and from Jack O'Neill are, we have to blow up the ship to save the people.
Right.
But Daniel was not afraid to stand up and be like, there has to be a way to save both.
Right.
I mean, try to save both. And
right. Don't just go for the one thing that is not necessarily the easiest, but the most obvious answer, that he wants you to work for it.
And then there was the episode with the, I believe they were the Urondans, who were all, like, as the show revealed, they were essentially space Nazis. And Jackson was the one who stood up and said, something's wrong about these guys. Why are we trusting them? Why are we giving them everything? And then I liked how later on in the episode, when Jack finally discovers the secret, he just walked up to Daniel Jackson and said, I need you to keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And at that moment, just like the acting between the two actors, the characters just started to realize, oh, no, like, yeah, we need to do what's right. Thank you for finally realizing that what I was trying to tell you.
Yeah.
And
that's early on in the series. Both of those are earlier on in those first 4 series that were on Showtime. And I think what those did is establish a little bit of that push me, pull you, that they were going to have conflict, but that it was never going to be conflict to the point that they couldn't get to a resolution or couldn't work it out. And I think that that's just testament to the writing and to the two actors, because they were able to bond enough to have that give and take and have that play, that it works. That chemistry works on camera quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I'm briefly jumping on the Daniel bandwagon. What I have a few anarchistic tendencies, and what I loved about Daniel is that sometimes he would just, what are you going to do? You can't court-martial me. Are you going to kick me out of the army?
Exactly.
What are you going to do? And I love that.
I think those are perfect.
Part.
Yeah, and John, to your point, that was somebody that the audience could identify with, so that we could see ourselves in Daniel or Samantha, but the non-military of us, we could see ourselves in Daniel saying, okay, wait a minute, A, I don't get why we have to make this decision, or B, no, we're not going to go that way. I'm going to go over here, and what are you going to do? And I think that there's a great, that's a great human feeling of, I'm going to stand up for what's right, damn the consequences, basically. And I think that you're right on. I think that's great. And actually, that's a great segue into this new game where we're getting an opportunity, which is amazing, to write and develop within the universe, within the Canon universe. And it's in between, just again, make sure our audience knows where we're at. We're in season 6 after episode 9. So we're sliding right in between end of season 6 and the beginning of season 7. And what we're doing is we're taking place, the entire storyline in the entire galaxy is basically ours for the taking, because we're exploring those stories that every single fan that's watched the show wanted to explore, which is, well, wait a minute, they just left that planet. What happened afterwards? So if both of you can speak a little bit about what you've written without giving away any secrets, of course, because we're not there yet, and what you've liked about what you've been able to write and how it ties into what we just talked about, what your favorite aspects are of the franchise in this series. And Steffi, go ahead.
So we were also allowed to put in completely new rules for planets, which I loved doing. I think they turned out great. But they definitely allowed us to go back to the aliens we just talked about, the ones with the planet who can only live on one planet, the Arankans? No?
Rondans? Rondans, however we pronounced it.
Ankarans. No, that's not the name. Anyway, the ones who can only live on one specific planet, we actually went back to to their home planet, the one that they originated from. We incorporated that. We brought back the Urondans. I wanted to do that. I thought we should explore that theme of what happens when they come back, because they always do. And I struggled with, because they are like goo on the iris. But John very helpfully brainstormed ideas to bring them back, so we were able to do that. So we were able to bring back a lot of our favorites, like the people in the VR. I wrote those.
Yes. Yeah.
But I also loved bringing in new gold and new planets. I think I would love to explore those. Like, if anyone on Fandomonian watches this, I also write fiction. Call me. I would love to explore those stories. But yeah, I think fans are going to be so thrilled at everything we're adding. We've got ties to Ra and to all the major gold, but then we explore it from a different angle. It's really amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And John, to that point that you were talking about earlier, inserting some of ourselves or the everyman that you can identify with, a lot of what you and Steffi have written does that and allows the people, and of course D&D 5th edition especially plays into that and allows for that. But if you could talk a little bit about what you've written and how we really get to play as part of those SG team.
So the thing about the game that we really wanted to focus on was making it show that you didn't have to feel like if you were making a character that you had to make a copy and paste of the SG team. Where if you were rolling up a character with your friends, you didn't have to point around the table and go, okay, you're Teal'c, you're LaCarter, you're the Jack.
Right.
And we really wanted to make it so that there was a lot of room for everybody to play as whoever they wanted. And obviously there's a theme. You know, it's you're playing either as a member of the Stargate team or as someone else, in fighting against, like, you know, the evil ghoul that have conquered the galaxy. Right. And we wanted to make sure that people could just sit down, think of what they want to do for a character, and then they would have the options available for them.
And I think what's really amazing about the game itself, and both of you can speak, especially as writers in the D&D world and in the gaming industry, is to be able to write something like this that has both the pre-gen characters, so for Stargate fans who might be newbies to D&D, or D&D fans and 5th edition players especially, who might not know Stargate. So John, can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think what you guys have done is really extremely easy entry, but you can level up really fast if you really are looking for some advanced play as well.
Well, when it comes to, like, you know, putting a complete newbie into the world, we knew that, like, this game was going to be a love letter to all the diehard fans of the series, like Steffi and I. But we also wanted it to be a game where, like, if I wanted to get one of my friends to play with me, I didn't want them to feel like they were constantly out of sorts.
Right.
And so I think definitely, especially in, like, Steffi's writings, we tried to make it so that we could get as much information into the reader without having to hand them, like, a book that said, oh, you understand UNAS diplomatic negotiations or anything. And it's like, no, it's just, okay, here's the Jaffa, here's the Aturan, here are the UNAS, here's the base, here are all the people who are in the base, and working to make sure that, like, it's, well, and also that's fun to read as well, because that's also, but making sure that it's in easily digestible chunks so that if you pick up the book and you only needed to hit 4 sections out of the book, you're still, like, going to learn what you needed to do, what your character would want to do, and then what the overall conflict would be.
Well, and Steffi, to that point, I think it's fun to explore too, right? Both of you have given this great foundation and yet also provided enough teasing information and storylines to get the players to really, whether you're a Stargate fan or not, to have fun exploring those storylines and their own character development.
Yeah, so the book, the chapters that we did, they're all in-game artifacts. They're written from the point of view of the Phoenix team, Phoenix One. So you're reading their mission reports and their log entries and their journals and letters home and all of that. And everything we wrote, we put 2 or 3 or 4 plot lines in there. So all you have to do is read it and you go, oh, this is a problem, and that's a problem, and that is also going to be a problem if they leave it for longer. Right. And then, so the storyteller, you just read that and you should immediately come away with, oh yeah, I've got like 3 things they can do here. But you could also let the players read it and then have them go in character, like, oh, we saw in this report that Lani said that this was going to be a problem. We should probably go back there and solve this. And one of the gold, the new gold that I wrote that I love is Enki. He's sort of a modern, as he's like a proto Prometheus. He helps humans. He doesn't help them because he's a good gold. He helps them because he's an agent of chaos, and humans are really good at chaos. Yes. But he does help them. So then you get that struggle of, should we ask him is this a good idea?
Right.
No, it's not a good idea. But presumably, if you're asking the question, should we ask this group for help? You're already in a tight spot, so you might as well.
Well, and his end goal is not to help us; it's to help himself. But he's a great character, and it is fun to explore. Again, going back to the way that you guys have written this and what you've written is really fun to explore. One of the things that I've enjoyed reading as what you've been writing has come through is that it makes me want more. I want to do more. So either I want to hear more from you or I want to explore it and do it myself. That's what's the beauty about what you guys have written, and especially coming as Stargate fans, you're rooted in the knowledge of the canon and the universe. And that's so huge, as you both know. For all of us in this fandom, we are very protective and territorial of it, rightly so. And so I love the fact that we've been able to bring people in that can recognize that, play into that, and then expand it and let us go play. Like, okay, go forth. It's fun, not to mix my fandom metaphors, but, and it's actually one thing I do want to talk to you guys before we go, because I think some people that are watching this would be really interested in this. Both of you being in the industry and this being your careers, can you talk a little bit about your creative process and how you write and how you've gotten to any kind of rhythm or what your routine is? Because I think they're always really interested in hearing what your routines and creative processes are. Steffi, why don't you go first?
My creative process is I brainstorm a lot. I love brainstorming, and my collaborators can always tell when I've moved. I have a lot of projects on my plate, but my collaborators can always tell when I've moved to their project, because then I'll just send them like 12 emails in an hour. One more thing, one more thing, one more thing. I always apologize. I'm that person. So I brainstorm a lot, and then I give myself a strict outline: 500 words on the Eurondans, 500 words on Enki, 500 words on this, 500 this. And then I write it, and there's drinking and crying until I finish. And then I edit it, and once I edit it, I'm good again. Then I'm like, oh yeah, no, I really am good at my job. Like, this is excellent material.
After you get through the outside, the other end of it, you're looking back and going, oh wait, this turned out well. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I do know what I'm doing. But and then I send it off to the editors.
And John, what about you when you're going through your process? What is it that you're thinking about and going through? Because I love what Steffi just described. It's a little bit of chaos and then a lot of organization, and then you come out the other end. I think that's a great creative process. What do you do?
I find that really, like, when I'm on a project I'm really excited about, like, my creative process is you know, like, one, like, kind of like Steffi, I'm just coming up with so many ideas at once. And then if I'm working collaboratively with a bunch of other people, sometimes, like, if I'm looking at what they're writing, I'll start imagining, like, you know, like, cool things about what they're doing. And so then I'll be like, no, just ignore their stuff, focus on yours. But a lot of it is just that, like, I'll come up with so many ideas, and I've got kind of like the opposite approach, where I will set like a minimum that I'll try to do, but inevitably I'll find myself, like, you know, like, I'll have, like, gone like way over that.
Right.
And so by the time I'm actually done writing a chapter or writing a section, I usually have to, like, you know, like, pretty much like hack and slash and be like, okay, we don't need this in here, we don't need that in here.
Right.
And then I'm very much in the, like, you know, you have to the murder the thing you love, where I'll be like, no, this is a really cool section, but it doesn't work. It's got to go. But it's a lot of, like, I work really well just late at night, and usually when I'm working, I like to listen to some of my favorite music. And some of my favorite writing music is probably considered a little weird. I like to listen to, like, old-timey radio shows. Or,
I love it.
Yeah, or like the Fallout video game series, I'll put on, like, Wasteland Radio.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's just music I've listened to for a very long time, and I know a lot of it is really dated and hasn't, like, aged well, but it's just one of those things where I like listening to very familiar songs, and it's something that won't really distract me anymore. It's more like, oh, I really like this song, and then I can just keep writing.
It's your white noise, essentially. It's what, and this is what I love about talking to the writers and the artists, is everybody's different, and there is no one right way. It's what fits your brain. How does your brain process the work, do the brainstorming, do the creative concepting, and then once you guys have all done your creative concepting, how do you wrestle that to the ground into some form of foundation and a building, essentially? And I love that it's always different. that's the best part about this. And that's what I always want to have anybody who's watching it know is whatever your creative process is, that's the right creative process. There is no one great, perfect way to get this done. And that's why I always love asking everybody, because it's always different. Everybody has a very different way to approach it, which is great. I like that both of you were talking, because I know we've brainstormed early on about some of the things that you were writing. One last question for both of you. In the Stargate Phoenix new universe, where do you hope to go? Where would you love to see this as we come out the other side? We're going to move into the Kickstarter in October. Where would you love to push this and to have the Stargate Phoenix RPG go? John, why don't you go first?
Well, one, I would really love it if we could get to go to Atlantis at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Because I loved Atlantis, and I loved the entire cast. I don't know. It's so hard because, there's some things that we're working on that, we can't really mention yet. But personally, I don't know. I would like to see more like a look at how other civilizations in the universe are dealing with their fight with the Goa'uld, and also a lot more into the planets that have been ruled by the Goa'uld for centuries. One of the things I really enjoyed doing when I was writing up my villains was trying to imagine where each Goa'uld's specialty was that made them stand out amongst.
Oh, right.
And so I would really like to see us look more into the villains, because I found that in the Stargate universe, there's so many interesting villains.
Yeah, that is the truth, right? Definitely have some fascinating villain storylines and characters that are, well, and as most actors say, villains are worth playing. You can really, there's a lot of meat to it, unfortunately, but there is. That's really cool. I would love to do the same. I'd love to see where some of these civilizations, what happened to them right after. Did they develop that skill set as well that Goa'uld had emphasized, or whatever it was? That would be fascinating. And so, Steffi, for you, where would you love to see it go?
So, definitely Atlantis. Yeah, definitely too. That would be that is my second favorite Stargate show. But I would also, because I deliberately left a lot of cliffhangers in my writing, and I would love to explore those. Like, I've got two Goa'uld, Cersei and Calypso, who are like two binary stars. They have this push and this pull to each other. Like, they love each other, but they don't want the other to be too clever. So they will actually make alliances with humans to knock the other down a peg.
Right.
Not because they like the humans, but just because they don't want each other to grow to be too powerful.
Right.
And I've also got this Erishka Gulg, who is a maker of death. And she had a vassal called Hecate who escaped, who is now nowhere to be found. And I would love to explore, like, what happens to these Goa'uld. Can they find Hecate? Will she stand up to Erishka Gulg?
Right.
What happens when you make a deal with Cersei or with Calypso? Because it's not going to end well for you.
No, exactly. And I loved Hecate. She was very well. Again, you and I had quite a few conversations about mythologies and what mythologies, and I think that that's always, as both of you mentioned, the Egyptian mythologies, but just any mythologies. I had certainly done research when I first got started in Stargate, but what was fun for me on this one is I got to go back and do Sumerian mythology and others. It was really fun to explore a lot, not to tease that out to some of our watchers right now and our fans, but that is something that's really exciting to do, to look at all of the worldwide culture mythologies and bring those pieces in.
Yep. Yeah, and Hecate, for example, she's the Lady of the Crossroads.
Right.
And I would love to explore what that is, because you would think that a crossroad is a Stargate, but that would make all of the Goa'uld Ladies of the Crossroads, and they're not.
Right.
So does she have like a special gate? Does it dial into more planets?
Right.
Does it dial into the Pegasus universe? So I would love to explore that either, in any form. Like I said, I do write fiction. I don't know if Brad and Wes are going to include like an anthology in their Kickstarter stretch goals, but I would definitely be on board for that.
Well, I think it's something we're trying to do, right? We have to look at the long term, what we can do and get done in time, but I know it's something that's on the horizon for sure.
Yeah, I would love to do a fiction anthology or just a tie-in novel or anything. But also just expand further on these weird goals, and also because we had the liberty of saying there are more system goals, system laws that we haven't seen yet. And obviously that makes, like, they governed a lot of worlds. They left a lot of havoc in their wake. And what does that look like? And I would love to do that in a way that stays true to the show, so that people who watch the show can go, yep, that is exactly what a gold would do. and that people who don't watch the show will also be able to get on board, because while the people who watch the show know what a gold would do, they don't know what a Rishka gal could do, because they've never seen her on the show. So I think that's very exciting, and I would love to explore all of that.
Well, and what I think is fascinating is what both you and John just talked about, is that both of you said essentially the same thing. Let's explore, well, Atlantis, but let's explore some more of the Goa'uld. Let's look at more of their universes, how far out, the implication by the Asgard is that they didn't move beyond the galaxy. But I'd love to say, really, because they're scavengers, I'm pretty sure they figured it out. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that'd be fun. Yeah.
Also,
go ahead.
Also, kind of like what Steffi was saying, looking at the Goa'uld hierarchy, because we knew that there was the Supreme System Lord, but there was also just like the numerous System Lords underneath it who commanded the Underlords and all the Minor Lords. Right. And we were also looking at like the coalitions that would pop up. Especially like we have, we mentioned several Goa'uld who belong to like the Western Fringes.
Right.
Just all System Lords who formed together like a loose political alliance and worked together, not because they were trying to like conquer the galaxy, but because they were trying to keep their place in Goa'uld society.
Well, and who did they partner up with? Because one of the things, with the Lucian Alliance, they explored somewhat, but you can't tell me there weren't criminal rings everywhere, because you can't have humans or other aliens under a Goa'uld oppression and not find the black market a very tempting way to do your business in the world or to make your way in the world. And I think that there's a lot of good stories there as well as what other things were happening underneath these Goa'ulds. Maybe some of these smaller Goa'ulds were running those themselves. It'd be completely likely. Yeah. I think it'd be great fun. And I think that that's what we'll be able to look at next. And hopefully when we do our next interview, we'll be able to talk about that. I want to thank both of you so much for doing and spending the time with us. It's obviously so much fun to talk about. I invite everybody SDCC at home to stick with us for the whole weekend on our Stargate Discord channel. We'll be bringing you not only more great interviews with our writers, artists, and game players, but also with a special guest at the end of the weekend, and we'll be doing some test games. So speaking of Stargate Atlantis, it's one of our guests will be David Hewlett, will be playing with us. So that'll be great fun. So everybody join us later this weekend. Thanks again, John and Steffi. Have a great time, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, we're now live, and thank you for joining us. We had that great interview that was from Jenny, who interviewed John and Steffi, a couple of our writers. We have John here live, so we're going to continue the conversation here. We've got a great group of GateMasters who have been helping us play test and run the game, and we have a group of players who are also been participating in the playtest and playing the game. So thank you guys for joining us. I'm the Brad Ellis. I'm the CEO of Wyvern Gaming. Over to my left here is Wes Walker. He's also with Wyvern Gaming. He's our jack of all trades. Basically our operations officer is what we're calling him. So, but he gets involved in a lot of the different things. You've seen other interviews with us throughout the weekend, so I'm going to leave a lot of the conversations to these guys to talk about what they've experienced in our game. So I'm going to start with Lee. Lee, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Lee Alley. I am a Gate Master and episode writer for the upcoming Living campaign.
Cool. Kelly?
My name is Kelly Varner, and I have been one of the playtesters for the game, and just a general jack of all trades Stargate fan.
Awesome. John?
Hi, I'm John Kennedy. If you watched the previous interview, you recognize my face. But I am one of the writers for the role-playing game.
Cool. Steven?
Hi, Stephen Hensel, and I've been doing some of the gate mastering, and I'm also an episode writer as well.
And he's done a lot more for Wyvern Gaming as well for this project.
Yeah, same with Lee.
And Lee, yeah.
Yeah. Colleen?
I'm one of the players, and Gabby down there is our GateMaster, and basically a diehard Stargate fan from the start, from the movie.
Awesome. And Linda?
Hi, I'm Linda, sometimes also known as Gabby the Gategaver. I am a Gate Master, and I've been working on episodes as well.
Cool. So maybe we start with Lee. Maybe we talk about your experience with as being a Gate Master with the Stargate role-playing game. How is it going? How do you like the system, etc.?
I'm liking the system quite a bit. It's something that I found interesting in when you're playing D&D. You have all these classes that you kind of get an idea what their role is in the party right away. You have your cleric, your fighter, your wizard. Knowing that kind of gets you an idea of what your character's going to be like and how they'll gel in the group. I think the same thing happens with the Stargate role-playing game. Is we have the diplomat, engineer, medic, scientist, scout, and soldier. I cheated. I have it written down here.
I was very impressed.
Oh yeah. Just spouted it off.
In front of me, I might as well use it. And so it's the same thing. It's if you pick one of these classes and you have a really good idea what your role is going to be in an SG team, and I think that's really, really helpful and really enjoyable. If you're not a gamer, if you're simply just a Stargate fan, I think that helps out a lot. You're watching the show, you get an idea of what type of class Teal'c is, what type of class Dr. Rodney McKay is. So getting into the game then, I think, helps out knowing what these 6 basic classes are and then gelling with your SU team when you go through the gate.
Cool, thank you. And Stephen, how about you? What's been your experience as a Gate Master for the game?
It's been a lot of fun so far. I have a group that I've been playing with, and the constant feedback that they've been giving is that it feels like playing in the TV show. From the way it's a good balance of combat and social and research, and you have the party split 4 different ways with 4 different people, and they're all radioing back to each other. Hey, I found this. Hey, I found this. Flip this button. No, don't flip that button. And so they've been having a lot of fun with that. And I personally have been really enjoying how the whole game's put together with that Stargate feel. And like Lee said, you have all the different classes with that, and so you don't feel forced into this is an action adventure.
Yeah.
Everybody has to run and gun all the time.
Yep.
You have something for everybody. If you like doing investigations, if you like, running through the same 3 square miles of woods from 15 different angles, you can do that. So it really does have something for everybody, is what I've found.
Yeah, I think the idea of the whole splitting the party when we first started the project, that was something that was very important to us. From watching the show, right? You see that the soldiers and the Jack O'Neills and the Teal'cs go and they fight the forces off while Sam and Daniel go and solve whatever the crisis is that stops the thing. So it was very important to us that splitting the party was something that was encouraged in the game as we designed it. So, and Linda, how about you as a Gate Master?
Well, I actually prior to COVID was running 3 different groups. I work at a charter school in San Diego, and I got permission from our school to run games with our students so that they'd have a chance at trying out play testing and get to know what that was all about and learn more about how games are developed, which the kids absolutely loved. So thank you guys for letting me include them
Absolutely.
on that. They learned a lot and had an amazing time trying out the game.
I hope you can continue doing that online or anything.
I hope that once we're back at school virtually, that I'll be able to get Roll20 games going with them in the afternoons that we normally meet as a D&D group.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a middle school group that meets on Mondays, and then I've got the high school group that meets on Wednesdays. And every single high school student wanted to be an UNIS.
Yeah.
So
One of
we
the better
have,
options.
yeah, we have this amazing brute force group, and they played the episodes very differently, of course, from the middle schoolers, who almost all wanted to be Tok'ras. They loved the whole split personality thing. I had a couple of kids who tried for one game playing one Tok'ra together so that they were being halves of the
That's funny.
character. But they argued so much between each other that they decided not to continue doing that. I think if you had a good, a pair of players who are really good friends who could reach an agreement, that might really work.
Yeah, I think it would.
That you could easily have two people play the two halves of the Tok'ra character.
Sure. Yeah.
Each have some input and argue with themselves.
Now,
And then my adult group, which was my Friday night group, so I was doing this 3 nights a week when I could, included Kelly and Colleen. And that was a much more balanced in terms of the characters we used. We started out using the iconic characters, and Jenny came to that group as well.
yeah, I see Jenny's trying to join us here. She's maybe getting her setup going over there. So
yeah, sorry, give me a minute.
No worries. We'll entertain ourselves. I'm not a very good host. Jenny's the host. She's the hostess with the mostest and can ask all the great questions. I'm just trying.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that exact phrase.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on.
And so not true. I think you guys both, you and Wes, are great hosts. Also, because you know it much better than I do. You've lived it for longer than I have.
Yeah, no worries. So Kelly, you're a player in Linda's group. What character do you play?
I chose to be an UNIS because I'm a high schooler at heart.
Nice.
So I was a Ringo. We played mostly, as Linda said, the iconic characters.
Cool.
And I'm not, though I knew of Dungeons and Dragons growing up, I knew of RPGs growing up. I never really got involved until I was an adult and did a couple LARPs with some friends, but never actually sat down and learned the system and how things work. And so I came to this from the perspective of just a huge Stargate fan and saying, yeah, I'd love to learn to do this, and I'd love to help out, and I'd love to learn how to play it. So I'm what we would call a noob when it comes to learning how things work in terms of roles and saves and all of the different class abilities and all those things. So there was a steep learning curve for me, which was really kind of cool. I found it rather exciting to learn how to do all this and work within this system. And the actual gameplay, it for me, just coming from a storytelling background, it's just pure story, and it's just beautiful. It's amazing. It brings me back to the show. It brings me back to the movies. It helps tie it all in. It gives flavor, and it just makes my brain kind of work as far as what other stories could be told within this world.
Cool. Awesome.
So that kind of brings me to this question that I've been thinking about, and I'm going to direct it to Colleen. So as a diehard Stargate fan, looking at our backstories of our iconic characters, how did you feel about the character themselves and their backstories fitting into the Stargate world?
They were pretty good. They did have some lackings that we all discussed about. Well, we needed more detail on the generalities. There was like, you had the flour and you had the sugar, but you didn't have the eggs and the milk quite in there to get it all.
Yeah, those
characters,
those original character sheets had just basically a paragraph of information.
Very little,
in the book itself, there's going to be a lot more of that broken out.
That's the more to come, yeah.
but it also allowed us to expand the characters in the directions we wanted to, because it's like, well, we would ask questions and then the poor gate master would go, oh, we didn't discuss that, but okay, let's do this, you know. So it was kind of, it was fun because it allowed me to draw on my Stargate and allowed me to draw on previous games, D&D and Firefly and other games, to create something new and different. And I played a scientist, which I've never done, so that was a totally different direction for me. So it was good. It was good because we were allowed to come up with the questions that were passed on that help hopefully build in more information to the characters in the book.
Absolutely,
Right,
yes.
right.
One of my favorite questions I got from one of the playtesters was they were playing the Unis, and they were like, "Hey, so do Unis eat junk food?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Will they eat like potato chips and Twinkies?" And I'm like, "I think they prefer meat, but yeah, sure, they could eat pretty much anything." And they go, "Great, because my character just loves junk food, and they're bribing him with bags of Doritos." And I'm like, "Go for it."
That's great.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's just like the game that was going on the other night. They were having the Unos pop cheese squares, and I was like, "Yep, I'm just thinking this Unos. Yeah, he's just popping these cheese squares."
That was David Hewlett playing the Unos,
Yeah.
which was great.
Popping cheese squares and making somersaults for the gate.
Yep.
That does seem to be a thing, because in the group I'm running, the Unos, the player with the Unos has been like, yeah, he just carries around whole canned chickens so that when he gets hungry, he'll just break one open and just pop a whole canned chicken. It's like, oh, okay, sure. But
I really like the Unis, and I'm glad we got to like do a bit more, especially with like talking about different worlds that they could be on. And I'm really glad that players didn't find them to be like an obstacle to play. And from what I've heard from a lot of people's games, they're also not like the token like stereotype half-orc, where the person playing the Unis just shows up and it's like, oh, me break door, you know, me punch Gould.
Yeah.
And instead it's like, no, they've got like their little eccentricities, like popping cheese squares or eating Doritos. But for the most part, people are like, no, I'm just playing, you know, like I grew up in a cave, literally, but I'm pretty smart, and this is my solution to the problem.
Yep. I see, Jenny, you got your setup going. You want to introduce yourself? I think probably everybody knows you by this point with all the interviews. But...
Sure. Yeah, you bet. Hi, I'm Jenny Stiven, and I've been a producer on Stargate with MGM since 2001, and then I was lucky enough to be asked by Wyvern Gaming to help out with marketing on the new game, which is great for me to be a big geek and get to enjoy it as opposed to just work it, which is fun. So thank you for having me.
Sure. I'm going to let you take over hosting duties because I'm terrible.
No, don't, because the thing is, look, seriously, this AMA is about the players and the GateMasters. That's more Brad and Wes and Steven and Lee and John and all of the players and Linda and Kelly and Colleen. That's more about you, and that's where the focus is. I'll chime in on the fun behind the stories or behind the scenes stuff. But
very well.
I think that all the things that you've talked about so far that I've been listening to, that's what everybody wants to hear about. They want to hear from you guys playing. What's this been like? What's it been like to write for it? And Lee, Steven, John, Linda, you guys have all written now as well as been GateMasters. And I think that those are really key insights that the players have been asking a lot of questions this weekend about.
Yeah. So what is y'all's insights? Just throw it out there on being able to write inside the universe of Stargate SG-1, basically.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of those questions where it's, oh, this is based on D&D 5e, so we're just going to do nothing but combat, right? It's like, yeah, you can. I mean, you're going to be shooting P90s and down the hallway and taking out people, taking out replicators maybe. That's going to happen. But I think, as we've said, there's so much story in this Stargate world that we have the tools that you guys have made rules for to help tell those stories. I think that's the biggest thing is, yes, we want to have a diplomatic mission. That is the entire focus about this episode. And now we have the tools to help tell that story better and have the characters then give their input into telling that story. If it's a mainly diplomatic story, I think that's what's really interesting is where Evan Gaiman is adding these extra rules to the foundation of 5th edition D&D to help facilitate those stories, and a wide variety of stories that we see in Stargate. And so I think that's really interesting.
Cool. Anybody else? Steven? John? Linda?
Yeah, definitely. Oh, sorry. Yeah, definitely. And the ability for people not to get locked out of certain situations. One of the things that I've really enjoyed about seeing how the 5e system is being used here is, in earlier editions of D&D and other games, you'll rack up skill scores that are like plus 15, plus 20, and so half the group is going, I've got a plus 2. I can't do anything here. I literally cannot do anything. But since everybody is within a couple of digits of each other on some of these skills, even the diehard soldier can add to diplomatic situations, the scientist can help with a shootout if they have to, or everybody can try to use their own way of talking their way through situations. And so you don't run into some of the things that I've seen in some other systems where you have half the group sitting there going, okay, well, let's wait for this situation to be done so I can get to my part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And with this, everybody can contribute in all the situations, which goes back to that Stargate feel of, there would be times when Jack would be sitting there and he'd be like, and then there's this part about the astrophysics, astronomy stuff. And everyone just goes, oh, you know that. Okay, well, cool. That helps with the situation. And that's what I really like, the way that everybody can participate.
And it goes back to you talking about splitting the party. That's the other way of making a character shine and have their spotlight moment. And I think that happens quite a bit in this game. I know D&D players, that's the rule, because if you split the party, you're going to die. Here, if you don't split the party, you might die. I think that's what's really important.
Right. That's one of the main challenges of the writer, is to be able to create a scenario like that, to create the scenario where the fighters can shine right now over here in this section of this encounter, and then over here the researchers can shine. That way everybody is tying it all in together in this one encounter.
Well, I think the play session yesterday had a good example of that, where you have half the group in a library frantically trying to research what's going on, while the other half of the group is trying to hold off the monster of the week. Right. And they're benefiting each other with the information that they're getting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it gives the players much more chance to get into their characters and play their characters too. Because, the focus of the story changes to, okay, you two over here. And so those two people really get a chance to contribute to the game. Whereas if you're all together in a group in the same setting and you're slugging it out with some monster, you don't get as much chance to be creative as a player, I don't think. It's the battle of the week. But this gives the kid who is more the thinker a chance to play the thinker. And I was finding that the young ladies in my groups at school especially were loving it, because it suddenly wasn't all about the boys bashing things. It was suddenly about, their chokra was off in the archive looking at the artifacts that they'd found and translating them.
Or like Colleen, because Colleen, you played as a soldier, right? Or did you play the anthropologist?
Yeah, I was the scientist, which is against type.
Well, but to Linda's point, one of the things that's kind of cool is that I've gotten to play as a soldier, and Kelly as an Unas, and I know Colleen, I know we did it once where we had you pretend to be a soldier in something we were shooting. But I think that that's part of it too, is that there is, in D&D games that I've played in the past, the boxes that we get put into, men and women, about the normal roles that you get to play. The way you guys have written this, Stephen, John, Lee, and then Steffi, of course, that it's really been great fun to be able to expand who plays whom. I mean, it's, Elena's group the other day, two of the guys played two of the women roles, which was really fun for them. And they had a great time. And they talked about how they approached it really differently. And I love that. I think that having it be that fluid and flexible makes it a much broader audience for especially the Stargate community, who is very broad spectrum. And so I think it's fun. Yeah.
Cool.
About like the broad spectrum of the Stargate community, I have friends who went into the military, and they would tell me that like rec centers at a lot of bases they were stationed at, they had like a big mixture of movies. A lot of them were donated, but a lot of them had like the complete sets of Stargate, because Stargate was really like, it had a positive portrayal of the military. And even when it had like negative portrayals, it was usually the SG team like trying to work within the ranks or trying to uncover like an insidious plot. And so I find when I announced that I was working on the Stargate game, I was getting messages from friends from back in high school who were like, hey, I don't play role-playing games, but I love Stargate. And I'm like, but you don't seem like the sci-fi type. And he's like, yeah, but it's one of my favorite shows, and I watch it with my kids. And it's just one of those things where, like, when we were writing the game, as we already mentioned, like, you know, there's a little something for everyone. The game isn't just like soldiers going out and killing the bad guys and coming home, because there were some episodes of the show where like they would show up on a planet in their full kit, carrying their P90s, and they look like they were ready for war, and not a single shot gets fired the entire episode. There were tense moments, but not a single shot would get fired. Like one of the episodes, and I am notoriously awful at remembering episode names. It's the one with the Gadmir and like the colony ship that's terraforming a planet that they just settled people at. Jack was all ready to send up a nuke and blow up that ship, but he never had to because they ended up talking through it.
Absolutely. Cool. And let's talk about plot hooks or story hooks. I think Stargate just in general has so many. It's so rich in things that can be explored. And John, as writer on the project, I know that was one of the tasks that we gave you was let's leave a lot of dangling threads out there, right? So do you want to maybe talk about some of those without giving it away?
I know, yeah. Writing for the game was just a joy for me because Stargate was one of those shows that I really latched onto at a young age. So, like, when I was first like asked to come up with a bunch of like just like plot hooks or interesting NPCs people can encounter, my brain went off to the races. Where it was sort of like, oh, we could do this, we could do that, we could do this. And then after I made like a list of like at least 30 or 40, I then just went through and it's like, okay, let's do less what was John wish fulfillment and more what other people would think is interesting. Because I think one of the running jokes was I would just have a whole team of Unis just going through the gate and going on missions.
That'd be fun.
But it's just like the world of Stargate. I mean, the whole like the mythos behind it is just so like amazing because you can have worlds where the SG team will step through the gate and they'll find like people taken from Roanoke, and they're the Gould that's suppressing them is based off the devil. Or you'll go through a world that was liberated from the Gould, and it's a corporate, meritocracy, and it's just the fact that it was simultaneously hard but also easy to just come up with plot hooks. And one of the things that like I really enjoyed was like coming up with some of the new Gould that players are going to be facing in the book.
Right. Yeah.
And there'll be some old favorites coming back. But it was just great to be able to look at these bad guys and like make them interesting, because it would have been way too easy to go like to just pick a random name from like a mythology book and just be like, oh, this is the bad guy. He beats up on humans. The Phoenix team shows up and beats them up, and that's the end of the day. And that could be a satisfying story, but we wanted to have like to give the bad guys like goals and ambitions of their own. And some of like the Gould that we came up with. Some of them view themselves as good guys. They're bad guys because they're still oppressing humans. But some of them are like, no, I'm like the best guy here. I mean, I'm surrounded by evil overlords, but I'm the best guy here. And being able to play with them and show their motivations and showing like giving like GateMasters the ability to have like fully fleshed out villains, because a fully fleshed out villain can really make or break a story. And then being able to sprinkle in other things too. Like we put in like references to old episodes. We put in references to like old bad guys they faced. And I think when players or when readers sit down with the book, you're going to like just like see your favorites. You're going to see some new stuff. but we did our best to be both faithful to the source material and then like not creating whole new things, but taking old things and doing a new thing with them.
Yep, cool. And as Stephen, I'll ask you, for story hooks, are you able to what are you using for inspiration for your stories that you're coming up with in the for your players?
How to answer that without giving away what's going on there? One of the things that I've been drawing inspiration from is
I'm gonna ask the same question of Lee and Linda. So
sorry, I'll stall for time while you guys get your answers
Thank you.
together. What I'm trying to go for with what I'm writing is some of those really fun episodes where they actually got to sit down and talk with people whose motivation was unclear. And part of what's going on is sussing out whether or not this is a bad guy, this is a good guy, this is somebody whose motivations might align with mine for right now. Are they, are they on where are they on the black-white morality spectrum, or are they on like yellow-blue for their what their beliefs are, and how do they intersect or not intersect, and then trying to decide how to approach that situation. Stuff like actually my wife and I have been doing a Stargate rewatch for my research purposes, and one of the recent episodes.
Don't you love that research? It's great research.
Oh, I love it. It's the best.
So much so.
It's like, yeah, I'm talking to my girlfriend. I'm working. It's fun.
Yeah. But we just recently watched the episode Ergo, which is an absolutely hilarious episode where most of it is just them trying to go, what the heck is going on? How do I communicate or stop communicating with this thing? How do I determine motivations? And that's what I've been drawing a lot on, episodes like that, storylines like that, to go, it's not always the mustache twirling villain, and it's not always, the stalwart hero. Mm-hmm. It's a very complex universe, and how do we fit the people that we run into, and how do we fit ourselves into that universe in order to not make the entire situation worse.
Right.
I love that about the entire game. Look, we all have our favorite ball episodes. We all have our favorite Wraith episodes, but there was a certain writing rhythm that had to happen. And Stephen, I love your phrase of the mustache twirling villain, because to hit your beats in those episodes, you have to have certain things happen that are pretty standard in a conflict in a TV series and when you're writing that script. What's beautiful about the game is exactly what you just talked about. The world is much more gray, and it's literally as if Brad and Wes and Wyvern Gaming and all of you who are writing have allowed yourselves to explore that Stargate galaxy universe gray areas that every fan has wondered about. I cannot tell you the number of conversations I've had with Linda and Kelly and Colleen just on a regular basis about what would have happened if we knew more about X episode happened behind the scenes. Yep. And to your point, Stephen, that's what this game allows, is that it absolutely allows every single player to be that fan, to be that creative muse, to write your own story. And it doesn't have to fall within a box of a plot device or a conceit. And that's really exciting, I think, for every Stargate fan. I don't know about D&D fans as much, but for Stargate fans, that's a huge boon.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a game designer, it's been really great because from our perspective, we created a sandbox. We created the game mechanics, and we have the story. And then I asked for Stargate fans, writers, to come along, and they all know what it is, the unanswered questions that they're been dying to get. So the stories that have been coming out have been just awesome. We've had to say no to so little because of everybody. The fans that are writing the stuff, the people who are writing this stuff are fans, so they know what not to step on, what is okay to to talk about. So it's been really I don't want to say easy from this perspective of the game development, the story aspect, but it's been a little bit easier than the other elements of it, because we have such a great group here, and the writers and the GateMasters who've been helping us test this thing. So, Linda, did you think about your what you used as inspiration for plot hooks?
Well, this will sound weird, but I feel like my family set me up to be a Stargate fan, like from the word go. My dad worked on the Apollo rocket.
Cool.
My grandfather started giving me his back issues of Archaeology magazine when I was pretty little. And I used to find the mummy pictures like really gross, but he'd give them to me and then we'd talk about them the next week when I saw him again. And he really fostered a love of archaeology in the past in me. And then when I got into college, I took this amazing class in comparative mythology. And then pretty much very soon after college, when I was in grad school, there was the Stargate movie. And I saw the spread in Starlog magazine before I actually saw the movie. And that picture of the Anubis costume that's in that Starlog spread, which you can find that article still online. All of Starlog is archived for free online. That picture made me go to the movie. I fell in love with the costume and the picture of the gate that were in that and had to go. So like from the movie on, I just had plots in my head that I wanted to explore. And once the series hit the air, that just, continued. The characters on SG1 were just like my perfect characters. I mean, there was the girl geek scientist, there was the archaeologist, there was Jack being snarky and punching the thing that needed punching. There was Teal'c being small, strong and silent, but supportive of like the whole group. I mean, he's really the big teddy bear when you think about it. He goes all postal when he needs to, but he's totally there backing everybody up and being a father figure, even though they probably don't always think of him that way. But I mean, the age difference is enough that he's old enough to be all of their dads. And just wanting to explore that. Some of the ideas that I presented to, Brad as my pitch were ideas that I've literally had in my head for over 20 years.
Yep.
That's so cool.
Yep. And she's writing those as episodes in our living campaign. So everybody will get a chance to see what's in Linda's mind.
Yeah. A window into Linda's mind is great.
How about you, Lee? What inspiration did you take from?
Well, we talked about John. You had some like story hooks. I think so a lot of players sometimes they don't know where to start, and I think the story hook is obviously the best idea. And so John and Steffi have written a ton of these story hook ideas that I think the main thing is getting your imagination and the what if, how does this play out, and getting excited about that. I think that's a really good start to when you're thinking about playing Stargate as the game master. You got to tell these stories to your players. It's about getting excited about it and just thinking like, what if, and it just starts with imagining, what if they have to go on this mission where a mysterious spaceship has crash landed on this planet, and now we're being sent out to go investigate what this is. Now that story can be told in other settings like Star Trek and Star Wars and other, maybe even in D&D, something mysterious happens. But then you have to think about, well, how will that play out in Stargate? This is going to be played out differently. We're not going to be necessarily taking a spaceship to get there. We're going to be going through the gate. Okay, that limits what we can do. We're under orders, so we have to follow. We can't do whatever we want. And what's our mission? Well, we have to go and discover what it is, whatever it may be. And then I think what it comes back to is is the characters. That's why we love Stargate. It's the characters first. Yes, it's the setting, but really having these rich, interesting characters that we can follow really make it interesting. So paying attention to your players and what they want out of it, and their maybe different ideas. As a gate master, that's one of the most challenging things, is to listen to your players and to take their ideas and put it into your story.
Absolutely.
And writing these episodes, that's one of the biggest challenges, is trying to think of all the possibilities that the players can do, and stuff that you're never ever going to be able to plan for, because everybody's so very creative. Even if you don't think you're creative, you are creative. And I think that's one of the awesome things about role playing, is being able to blend that all together, from the players to the game master, to tell the story together.
That's a great point. We actually have a great interview about to come up with Chris Judge, and he's talking about how the D&D and sci-fi really, brings out the imagination, right? So I think it's look forward to that. Actually, it's going to be upcoming at the top of the hour for those watching. So for me as a gate master, because I've had to do it myself, because we do have to eat our own dog food and play test the game ourselves. I took inspiration from a lot of watching the episodes of SG1, and then imagining, okay, SG1 went to this planet and they visited it, and then they go away, right? Well, there's follow-up visits to those particular planets, right? I mean, certainly, they sent other teams there to check up on them. So a lot of the episodes that I've written are those follow-up kind of visits, and you can come up with a whole lot of stuff from there. Just think about the planet that Reese was found, right, for the replicators. Do another follow-up visit there. See what happens. And there's just tons of stuff that you can find and figure out along the way. So.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that episode, talking about characters, and what Steven said about being gray. It's in that episode, it ends with Jack doing something very bad, and he's the hero. But that's what happens with characters that are rich, not one-dimensional. He does feel bad about it. He had to do what he had to do. Daniel is very angry at him, but because they're people. And I think that goes with not being the mustache twirling, not being the goody two-shoes. You are people, right, and you change your reactions, your emotions, depending on what the situation is. It's not always going to be the same. So that's why I really love how rich the storytelling can be.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I came in a little bit late. So Brad, I don't know if you and Wes already asked everybody, but you guys all know the drill. It's fascinating to me how everybody came to Stargate. So Lee and Steven, our originally pre-recorded interview, unfortunately got corrupted because the power went out in my house. But I would love to hear from everybody, because obviously I know Kelly and Colleen and Linda's story and how they came to Stargate, but I would love to hear that, if it's okay, if you guys could tell how you got to Stargate, how you discovered it, and why you're doing this and writing it, because that's a diehard passion and love for a particular subject matter and topic to do this deep a dive. So, I mean, starting with Lee and Steven, if you guys could tell us, unless Brad, did you already ask this and I missed it and I'm repeating? Okay, good. He saves that for me, because this is my go-to. I am fascinated by how fans got to Stargate. So Lee, if you could tell us how you got there.
I'll try to keep it brief. I was a teenager, went to go see this crazy movie called Stargate in 1994. I was a big fan of the X-Files and Ancient Astronauts and Aliens and all that fun stuff. So the early 90s, that stuff was happening. So here's this crazy thing with Egypt and all that fun stuff. Love the movie, watch it nonstop. But as you grow up, you run out, you start learning other fandoms and things like that. So didn't really.
No, say it isn't so. There's no other fandoms.
There are no other fandoms, but I did get brought back into Stargate fandom. I wasn't watching the SG1 in their original run until I met my wife in 2005, and she was the huge Stargate fan, the bigger Stargate fan, and she's the one who brought me back into the fandom. So we both fell in love, and then I went back into love with Stargate, and so have been a huge fan ever since.
I love that. I think I love how people get pulled in. Steven, how about you?
I've been thinking on it more since we had recorded the other one, and I still can't remember exactly how I got into Stargate. I've been going. I know I didn't see it in theaters, and I'm not exactly sure when I ran across Stargate. But what really stands out to me is when I realized I was hooked on it, and I really enjoyed it, was in college. My roommate and I had a collection of the DVDs, and we binged it in far too little time than we should have with active college class schedules and stuff.
We won't mention which classes got skipped to binge through.
Yeah, not going to, but just watching through it and going, this is such a rich mythology. The characters are amazing, because I've always had a thing with Star Trek and Star Wars, and in some ways Stargate has always inspired me as kind of the love child between the two in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Because on the one hand you've got all of the optimistic future, we're here to make things better, we want to get along with people, we want to be the big happy family, and on the other side and on the other side, you've got grand galactic conflict going on with following the underdogs, and that's always been the draw for me with Stargate. Is it's in if you stand back and look at the setting, it's a very dystopian setting because you have these evil alien overlords that rule everything, but you follow the characters to go, it doesn't have to be this way. We can be better. We can do better. We can be a big intergalactic family that has hope and wants to make tomorrow a better place. And I just love that about what's going on.
And that is so true. I love that. Hey, Linda, so what's your story? How'd you get to it? I mean, you gave us a little bit of it already because of your influences, but did somebody recommend it to you? Was it somebody in the family or just somebody in college and that's how you stumbled on it?
Really, it was Starlog magazine. I had a subscription. I read it cover to cover every month, every single article. I figured out what books I wanted to read.
That's awesome.
That magazine was a major part of my teenage and college years, and I
love that. That's great.
So seeing that spread, and I strong-armed my boyfriend at the time into taking me to the movie, and then the next week we went a second time.
Awesome.
He thought he was gonna hate it, and he loved it, and he was like, "Oh my God, that was the best. Do you want to go again?" And I'm like, yeah, let's go again. We only went twice because, teenagers, not much money.
Yeah.
I think we went bowling for really cheap a couple of weeks after that. And then when I heard that it was going to be a TV series, and I heard that it was going to be Richard Dean Anderson, I'm one of the generation that says we were raised by MacGyver, and really I was. I mean, the whole career choice I made in life, I work with kids in a neighborhood that has a high incidence of gang violence and is very poverty stricken. MacGyver made me choose that path in life. So the fact that he was doing Stargate, which I already loved, that just absolutely guaranteed that I was
that locked it for you.
Yeah, for every single episode. And anything new that happens Stargate, I am going to be there. This is a lifetime commitment for me.
I know. It's like the Holy Grail.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It really is. It's amazing how much inspiration. Yeah, and it's amazing how much inspiration the movie, the show has done. And John, I know that your interview, dropped my mouse. The interview right before this, you talked about it, but if you could just, for people who've come in late, talk about your inspiration in finding Stargate.
Yeah, so actually the same thing. I was in middle school when the movie came out, and I loved it. My mom hated it, but I loved it. And I would rent it a lot from our local video rental store, which further dates how old I am. But I found the first season in syndication when it was on a local station here, and then I watched it all through college. And when I would get out of classes, I would go home, and Sci-Fi Channel would have it on at like that, like between like 5 and 6 every day.
Right.
And
Right.
I would meet up with friends, and we would like every Friday night we'd watch the new episode of Stargate and the new episode of Atlantis. And for me, it was just one of those things where it was just a very constant like entertainment for me during like my college.
Yeah.
And I had almost all the DVDs, but they got stolen like at least 10 years ago. But I got them back
They
later.
wanted them that bad.
Crooks with good
I know.
taste.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, when it comes to the role-playing game, the moment that the press release from Wyvern Games went live for, we got the license, we're going to be doing the Stargate role-playing game, I sought them out, and I like found their website, and I found where to contact them, and I sent off like my email and my CV and like some writing sample. Totally like just cold called them, and I'm like, I'm a huge fan. I've been published in a lot of things in the gaming industry. This would be a phenomenal opportunity, and I would love to work for you. And I heard back, and like a few like hours actually. And it was one of those things where like you try to like play it cool, and I didn't want to like just talk to Brad and just kind of be like, I love Stargate, hire me now. I super love Stargate. Look, I'm wearing a Stargate shirt. I was like, no, be calm, be cool. But at the same time, it's like internally, I'm like, please hire me, please hire me, please hire me, please hire me.
Oh, I
think
love
we're all that way. Yeah.
Those are
yeah.
those perfect synergy moments. It's kind of amazing. And Kelly, I know for you as a writer also, but as a fan and what you do for a living, you finding Stargate is for both you and Colleen a little bit expanded too, because you are very much into the cosplay world.
Yeah, absolutely. I came to Stargate, I saw the film and I loved the film, but it was the series that really grabbed me. And it was each of the characters of SG-1 hit a perfect part of me. There was the doctor who was very intelligent and interested in archaeology and in mythology and in connection with other people, and that filled in. There was the leader of the group who was snarky and sarcastic, and that's part of me too. There was that stoic, silent Jaffa who was just that rock for everyone, and that's a part. And then there was Sam, who was that feisty feminist who was smart and intelligent, two things, same thing.
No, she gets it twice because she's that good.
Yeah, she's that good. We'll just do that. We'll go with that. And she's also, this fierce fighter and very strong-willed, and just that filled this whole team. I just wanted to like envelop them and just suck them into my psyche and make me them, so to speak. And so I fell in love with that, and from there came, well, if I love the character so much, why don't I cosplay as them?
Yeah.
Why don't I pick, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't really know which one. So I just kind of like, I got some uniform pieces. I put, I bought some patches and tried to create a character, and then decided to springboard off into another fandom and created a mashup character between Harry Potter and Stargate. That was interesting.
I'm digging it.
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
So who knows what's next? I'm like, I would love to do a full Unas, but I don't know if I could pull off the prosthetics.
Oh man,
it's allowed.
That'd be awesome.
It would be so cool. I'm actually building a Merrick for my spouse.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. When I went to a Stargate convention and bought an auction item that was the actual production photos from that
cool.
From that
Nice.
character. So replicating replicators in the 3D printing in the garage.
That's really dangerous. You should not be doing that.
try to keep the blocks separate until the appropriate time. But all of Stargate has really given me the opportunity to be incredibly creative in ways that have never been creative before. I never would have thought of 3D printing. I never would have thought of prosthetics. my cosplay had generally been very straightforward. And, you create or purchase the costume, you put it on, you embody the character. But now I'm doing things like I got a 3D printed Zat that I have to actually put together and sand and paint and Bondo and do all those things, which I would have never done before.
You wouldn't have done. And I think so much of what the Stargate community, and Colleen, you can speak to this a lot, is so supportive of that creativity. And there are so many Stargate fans that you could reach out to say, okay, I really want to do this, but I don't exactly know how. And then everybody jumps in and helps you do it, which has been a lot of what you've done from the very beginning with the cosplay group.
Who, me?
Yes, you.
Oh, okay. I finally get to talk. Okay. Well, first of all, Comic-Con 1994, Dean Devlin brought costumes and props and trailers to the con, and my best friend at the time, Pearl, and I were in the audience, and I was just with the trailer, and we got to see those amazing costumes in person. And then we got tickets for the preview, so we got to see the movie before everybody else, and I was just floored. I was like, that's it. This is what I want. This is my fandom. And when they announced that it was going to Showtime as a TV series and RDA had signed on for it, I'm like, okay, week beforehand, we're getting Showtime. We'll get Showtime for this and this only. And I was just enamored from the beginning, because I was an RDA fan from his stint on General Hospital as Dr. Jeff Weber. So I've been I just dated myself. I know. I've been a long time fan. So
I love it. That's great.
I know. And then GateCon happened in 2000, and that was just amazing because I went there by myself to Vancouver, and we had 700. There were 700 people there, and 90% of them were females. First show was about the military in science fiction, and all the fans who showed up at the first Stargate convention were all females. It was bloody amazing.
That's amazing.
It was. And
And
then we started doing the costuming, sg-command.com. And I've been pushing Stargate at Comic-Con at our fan tables, and it's my thing. And then my husband, he was a fan, but not a fan. And then he went to the con, and then that's when we started buying props and costumes. And he got his hand on one of the capstones from the movie, which is the one that actual James Spader actually touches when he realizes what they are. So that's how we keep it alive, because we've got bits and pieces of all aliens, and we've got Sam, Jack, and Teal'c, and Daniel costumes and props. And so, when the gaming came up, first it was going to be Star Worlds, and that kind of didn't happen. We were there for that. And
we've been through 4 games that have crashed. So Brad and Wes, Brad and Wes, you've gotten farther, because Colleen has truly, in many cases, single-handedly kept the love alive for fans when things have been pretty dire. So it's we've been through 4 rounds of games that have not worked or thought they worked, and this is different. It's a different feel. Definitely feels
good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna knock on wood anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
No, that's what's so fun, because as a gamer and a GM from other sources and having created my own LARP, this has been a lot of fun, because it's taken so many different loves and put them into one place that you can take and do wherever you want and be creative whenever you want. So you're not stuck at a game station. You're interacting with people, so you're creating your own teams, and you're bringing your love of the game and your love of the show together, and actually get to be an SD team, which is fun.
And I think that's so much of what you and all of the fans who are writing, let alone being part of this, and Brad and Wes have opened this up, which is a really different feel from everything else that we've worked on in this area for gaming with Stargate, with the franchise, is that Brad and Wes, what you've done is you've really approached this differently.
Yeah, it
And
was
it's shown
very
that
important to us to be,
it's
bring everybody
huge.
in. We want this to be a game that everybody is helping build, because it's
Yeah.
if you're part of it, you have a lot more fun, and you can make it your own kind of thing. And that's really what
Right.
D&D is a lot of times it's you're making, as a DGM or a Gate Master, you sit down and you make the game your own. And
Yeah.
that's we want to make that from the start from this. So we have a great community over on Discord. We've got some forums over at StargateTheRPG.com. It's been a very lively community. If you're not signed up at StargateTheRPG.com, I heavily suggest that. Not just because we get signups, but that's where you get the news and information on when this thing is going to go live. And there's a lot of Stargate fans there talking about Stargate and having a good time and doing a lot of what ifs. Story plots and things
Brad,
like that.
And also, you and Wes are very involved. So if you're on the forum or on the Discord channel, you guys are there every day. You're talking with people late until the night.
Yes.
Everybody here is on the Discord channel. I've had great conversations with everybody here. We've had some amazing deep dive Stargate discussions and conflict resolution on thematic things. And I think everybody that wants to get involved, when Brad and Wes say we're really opening our arms to you, they are. They're there talking with you, listening to you as a fan, and that's the difference.
Absolutely.
I think that's a huge difference.
And I can say, as just a player not involved in the creation, it's very obvious that the people who have been creating it do love the show and are paying attention to what the fans love about the show, which makes it that much more interesting, because we can feel the love that's gone into it, and not that we're just trying to make money.
Thank you.
So that's what I like.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
That was really great.
That's great.
I think
Let's
that's
end on that.
That's a great place to
end. I was just going to say, that's perfect. That was the perfect ending.
I want to thank everybody for their time and showing up, and for this interview. Basically, we didn't really have questions come in, but I really thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. This group of individuals right here, I think, is very core to the thing that we're creating. And we couldn't have done this without you guys. So thank you very deeply, and
thank you guys.
Appreciate it. So at the top of the hour, we have interview with Chris Judge, and they'll be talking. I talked about it earlier. It's a great interview. I highly suggest checking it out. So, and again, StargateTheRPG.com. Go over and sign up. All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye now.